the proton nucleus and the electron. Okay, so we have an expression for V. So substitute, plug that value for V into the V in this equation. That was the Schrödinger equation with the R and the L. Go back 2 sessions. Okay, 2 sessions back, and using the following substitutions, again to simplify everything, to not convert, using these 3 translations, if you like, or variable changes, change of variables. You can get rid of lots of terms and simplify this equation, Schrödinger equation, to this form. And I ask you to do that for homework. Okay. So take this equation, plug this value V into it, use these substitutions, and derive this equation. Okay, another homework exercise. Now, I'm actually that's a good point. You were saying a bit earlier about the debating on the mix between alphas and non-alphas following these courses. All the homeworks that I'm giving is a kind of self-filter. If you're serious students, and the probability, if you are alphas, then it will be easier for you to do all these homeworks, because you're alphas, you're smart. So, for those who are struggling with all these homeworks, things are just going to get worse in that sense, because as they go up, there'll be more homeworks and it'll get more difficult, and so I guess just in the nature of it, with all these homeworks and getting harder, I guess implicitly I'm aiming at the alphas. So, and why is that? Well, I guess that a sort of psychological ego type underlying reason is, especially as a kid, I always felt discriminated against by being an alpha myself, and now I call myself a sage. I define a sage, I think I've mentioned this before. A sage is somebody who, 4 criteria. Yeah, I think I have mentioned this before, but refresher. A person who is an alpha, has a PhD, has ideas, and writes books about them. So as a sage, I feel I live in a culture that is sageist, in the sense of discriminates against sages. Our culture is highly what I call peakered. You go into a supermarket and there's just pop music blaring. Sages on the whole hate pop music. The movies are geared towards the peakers, because that's where the market is, of course. Movies are made to make money. It's a business, and most of the population are peakers by definition. They lie in the peak of the bell curve. Now, some countries, European countries, are more civilized in the sense they cater more, relatively more, to the fringes, so the subs. So I define peakers to be people whose intelligences lie within plus or minus 1 standard deviation of the mean. In other words, the peak of the bell curve, the peak. And the other 2 fringes, the lower fringe and the upper fringe, the lower fringe I label subs, and the upper fringe I label supes, short for sub and superior relative to peakers. And sages would be even more so, even more of supes. But even so, for example, in the European countries with government-controlled media, though the managers, the politicians of those institutions, the media, the government media, they feel a moral obligation to cater not only to the peakers, but also to the subs and the supes. But that doesn't happen in countries like America, where the media is virtually all under corporate control, not government control. And therefore, corporations, all they think about is money and profit. So they don't give a damn about the fringes, the fringe people, the fringers, the subs and the soups. Whereas European countries, more humane or civilized in that sense, do. So I grew up in Australia as a kid, and it does have government media, but it was still not very good. I had to go to Europe, which had much larger populations and did not start their history as a convict colony, to get higher quality media. So for a long time I always felt neglected and ignored by the cultures I was living in, but less so in European cultures. And then I went to America and was appalled by the quality of the media, or the lack of it. It was distinctly aimed at the peakers. It was beautifully, finely tuned to the desires and interests of the peakers. For peakers, American media, wonderful, right? It's with a ratings system that programs, if they become slightly less popular, they'll be axed and some other program will come in to please the tastes of the peakers. So if you're a media person, if you like American television and you're a peaker, man, you've got life made, right? So society aims at you guys. Well, it won't be you guys, you won't be peakers. You wouldn't be doing this stuff if you were peakers. Anyway, so the sage in me, the soup in me, felt really, and I'll be blunt, felt really pissed off that living in America, just not catered to. America's sages, intellectuals, are so appalled by the quality of the American media, they just don't watch it. And that's a tragedy for the culture, because then the America's sages get out of touch with, just no contact with the peakers. There's a terrible, not just IQ and knowledge gap, which is inevitable in any culture, between peakers and sages, but there's just not any communication. There's no vehicle, there's no institutions with which American sages can browbeat the peakers in America. Because the peakers, they live in a media world that's aimed specifically at them. So it's dumbed down from a sage point of view. The American media is dumbed down to aim at the peakers. The American sages don't watch that garbage, and so there's just no way that the sages can influence the peakers. The sages cannot slap down peaker ignorance and stupidity. And the result of that is you have an American culture which is incredibly ignorant and stupid in terms of, for example, evolution, religion. 70% of Americans are still religious. I mean, that's a huge cultural difference between America and Europe. 50% of Americans believe the Earth is about 10,000 years old. I mean, my God. So in a sense, I'm glad now for the internet, and the internet speed is doubling every year. So I see then that it will be Europe's sages who slap down the mindlessness of American peakers, because they are so ignorant. And American institutions need to be changed so that American sages can slap down and correct the ignorance of America's peakers. So, that's my spiel. Okay, so ask you to do this homework. Convert the Schrödinger equation into this form using these substitutions. Way back, chapter 4, like half the course back, we took the L equals 0 case, right? And we've got the solution for the energy eigenvalues, this. So this is a bit of revision. Go back to chapter 4. Here are your eigenvalues for different values of n. Okay. Now, if your rho here is large, the L dependent term, so this and this will drop out, I guess, right, if L is large. If rho is large, these two terms will drop out, and then you get a particularly simple form for your dE, and your R here will approach this form. Not this form, this blows up. You know, the Argo rho goes large, well this blows up, so forget about that. Because that is one of the solutions to this, you know, when this term are gone, this is a solution to this DE, but it's inappropriate, it's not physical. So you approach this solution as you got something like this earlier before. And end of the board, so have to continue this on. So we now have an equation for the Schrödinger equation for the hydrogen atom. So we can continue working with this in the next session.